Good morning, everyone. My name is John Zelenak, and I am the Operations Manager at SUNY Online. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Open Educational Week webinar. We are pleased to host Dr. Veronika Dolar from SUNY Old Westbury, an assistant professor in the Department of Politics, Economics, and Law. Dr. Dolar will be sharing about her experience collaborating with students to create their own textbook for her course. Welcome, Dr. Dolar.
All right. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for being here with us to celebrate. Apparently, this is the kickoff event for the for the Open Week here at SUNY Old Westbury, for the SUNY as a whole. So I'm really honored to be the first one to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I guess that would be a good start. Okay, and can you see that? And I'm just going to minimize this so that we can do this. Oh, you see, this one doesn't even have any question mark. So one of the debates we just had before the session started was about the title. So my title is "Let's Write a Textbook." Very excitedly, right? Why not? As a question mark, not like why not? Why you shouldn't do it? That was a good point that Christopher just made. Here there was no punctuation, but in my other ones it was a question mark, and in the original invitation that you got was a exclamation mark. So hopefully I'm going to show you why you should do it, not why you should not do it. That's going to be the purpose of my talk. So let me just introduce myself very quickly and go, oh yeah, no, it's not going to basically be working. I'm going to minimize this again. And you can see my screen, right? We're on the same page.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So this is just a bit of an introduction. So as mentioned, I'm a professor of economics at SUNY Old Westbury. But one of the things that I'm actually doing these days as well is I just finished teaching a master level course on effective didactical practices in open education. And this course is part of the master level course in leadership in open education. It's a fully certified master level program at the University of Nova Gorica in Slovenia. That's a country where I'm from. And it's completely by chance that it just happens to be the place where they're sort of putting together this beautiful program in open education. So it's a bit of a plug-in for that as well. If you're interested in taking a course or different courses, or even taking a master level in open education, leadership in open education, let me know. It's a beautiful program that we're sort of putting together. And here at SUNY Old Westbury, I teach intro, micro, and macro classes, health economics, labor economics, a course called food and wine economics, and public finance and public policy. And just to sort of get you going in terms of like my approach to pedagogy that is related to open pedagogy as well, is that I like these two quotes that I'm going to share with you. So it says, we learn best when we are actively engaged in constructing something that has personal meaning to us, be it a poem, a robot, a sandcastle, or a computer program. And then it sort of follows from this debate on this constructionism that also says learning happens especially felicitously in a context where the learner is consciously engaged in constructing a public entity. And when we're talking about open education, that's at the heart of it, right? That's the core of open education, that we're creating this material, open educational resources, we're putting it and sharing it with people out there. And sort of we are contributing to this knowledge. And in fact, these are sort of the things that I'm discussing with my students, that I'm trying to sort of move my students from the consumers of knowledge to creators of knowledge. And there's all this discussion, a lot of things have been written already about the disposable assignments, right? Where, students are asked to write an essay, some research document, do some multiple choice questions and so on. And after this assignment is done, the professor typically grades it, the student gets a grade. Sometimes you might spend a lot of time actually making comments on those assignments, and the students, I'm not quite sure like how much of those comments actually read afterwards. But the end result here is that, all this effort and time is put into something that ends up in a recycle bin. Nobody ever sees it outside of the classroom, and typically it's mostly just the instructor and the and the student that are sort of engaged sharing this material. Sometimes it might be the rest of the class, but clearly nobody else benefits from any of this work. And sort of the whole point of creating these open educational resources is, that you're coming up with this idea of the renewable assignment, where your work, in this case, I'm talking to my students, where your work adds value to the world. And in fact, that's sort of the way I'm trying to engage them, right? And I already have 2 examples. So in my class on food and wine economics, students were creating their websites, and then they were putting the material online. And I think within 3 months after that class was finished, I already got an email from Addis Ababa Science and Technology University in Ethiopia. And the professor basically informed me that they're going to be using the material that my students created for their classes, because they simply don't have the access to any high-level teaching material, and they were already benefiting from it. So my students were already informed. Like I told them, I sent them this email and say, look, like your work really does matter. People are already reading your websites. And I hear say probable use in Peru somewhere, because between I have a tracker on my websites. So all of a sudden, between August to November, I was getting hits on daily basis, like 5, 6, 10 times, 20 times from different IP addresses somewhere in Peru. And I'm guessing that a class, because it wasn't the same IP address, they were all over different places. So I'm guessing somebody was using the material in that class as well. So that's sort of the idea. So what do I do? So what's sort of my new approach? So as I said, like I've been doing this for the past 4 or 5 years. And in the past, what students did is they created their own website. So I created an assignment, I gave them the questions, and they were answering this stuff. And in fact, let me just show you how something like that would look like. So this is my public finance and public policy course. Is the same one for which I'm actually now writing the book with my students. And this all happened last spring, and the coronavirus hit. So I gave them this. I created this new assignment in real time, coronavirus economics, where. Where they were basically guided through, through different material that they were supposed to read and get information about. There was like a lot of information I was providing, and also sort of putting it online. And other students in my other classes were able to sort of see this information, and then lots and lots of statistics, lots of things really that were happening in real time as this information was coming up. So this was like paper in March 2020, March 2020. So all real-time information. And then at the end, so all the comments that they were basically being made. And at the end, they actually had to open this assignment, applied learning assignment. And what I did is, instead of, just asking these questions in general that I would be discussing in this class, everything was related to coronavirus. So there were like some fundamental definitions that I would normally cover in my class anyways. So market failures, externalities, what are examples, how do we do this stuff in economics, and then we're connecting everything to COVID-19. And then what students did in this particular class, let me just go back here. What they, no, I actually was there already. I skipped it. What students did in this particular class, they were creating their websites. I just want to show you here. If you go to more and you go to student sites, each student had their own website, and I sort of guide them how to create a website. And on their website, they were answering these questions. And you can actually already see how they were helping each other, because, like the sort of high achievers were the first one to be posting stuff. And then some other students who were a little bit confused were able to have that. So let's just start with one site over here. So they created this website, and then here's the applied learning assignment. This is assignment 2. There was other assignments already they were creating online, and then they're answering these questions, right? So this is my question. Here's the answer. My question. Here's the answer, and it's all the same, and it's all repetitive. And everybody, I mean, sometimes people come with different examples. Sometimes it's exactly the same example, but it's very, very repetitive. And they created these websites. So then what I'm doing now with this textbook, I'm sort of doing the same thing, right? So we're writing this textbook together with my students. But first of all, it's a group assignment. So that's the difference. So here, everybody was working, on their own on their own assignments, but now it's a group assignment. So that's already the big difference. And the difference is that instead of everybody sort of answering the same questions over and over and over again, what I have created is that I assigned a group of 3 or 4 students, and they have to write a chapter. So let me then explain to you how this actually works. So I'm using Canvas as opposed to Blackboard. I'm using Canvas again because it's easier to make it public later on and make it into open educational resource. So this is the class that we have together. And then if we go to the modules over here. And by the way, I go very quickly over this. So if at any point stuff is confusing and you want me to stop and go back, I really sort of encourage you to pause me so I can spend some time on that. So questions can be asked during the presentation as well. I should have mentioned that already. So here's my module. This is just getting started. This is some other things that they have to do for this class. And this is basically, oh yeah, see, and here's the question mark. Let's write a textbook, right? Why not? So how does this actually work? So let me just show you sort of the setup, the to-do list for the textbook creation, like where we're at. So I created a little video. Let me pause for a second. One of the things that is happening with this particular class, which is sort of very challenging, is that it's a completely asynchronous class. I don't see my students at all. So all the communication is basically through the videos that I'm posting, through the announcements that I have. We use Microsoft Teams to communicate. So it's a little bit challenging. So this is like really, how to make your work even more complicated during these complicated times. This is it. So I don't see them. So all my instructions, which is actually pretty helpful, are basically by me creating lots and lots of little video tutorials. So here it's the let's write a textbook, and I introduce students, to this concept of what's going to be happening. And a lot of the things that I was mentioning to you, like I was reading the same quotes to them about how important it is to create something public that other people are going to benefit. All of that is basically sort of explained in this little video tutorial here as well. So then I tell them, okay, so these are the deadlines that you have to sort of go and follow. You have to read a lot of stuff. And one of the first things they had to do, this was due last week, they had to come up with a group. It was sort of this group assignment and the group contract. So as I said, everybody's working by themselves for this class. It's a completely asynchronous class. So to create a bit of a community, I decided to make this into a joint collaborative work. So people are working on these chapters together. That doesn't have to be the case. I mean, you can choose that you're going to assign different parts of the chapter to an individual. So it's only independent individual work. So one of the things that like I was then trying to incorporate by creating this collaborative learning assignment is like trying to make sure that there's this individual accountability and positive group interdependence. So how do you achieve that, right? The problem is that if you assign an individual work and individual grades, that's obviously a great mechanism to ensure individual accountability, but they might minimize the importance of the group effort, right? So everybody's just gonna, go into their own corners, do their work, and try to get the grades that they think, they want, right? So the overachievers, the A students are going to be working hard, trying to do a very good job, but ignore everybody else in the group. People who are not really interested in this project, they're going to put whatever effort they think it's necessary for them to pass, and that's going to be it. So you have this individual accountability, but how do you get the group work together? If you only assign the group grades, then yes, then you hold the group accountable, and the members are trying obviously to support each other's learning in some ways. But the problem is that if individuals are not held accountable on their own, and the group grades basically is a grade that everybody gets, you have this opportunity for easy riders or free riders, which is also what we study in economics, right? So there's no point of certain individuals to do any work because they know they're going to get a group grade anyway. So there has to be a little bit of both. So what have I done for my course? So as I said, like the way I'm trying to sort of build a community in this class where we don't see each other at all is, and I'm going to go back to this module, is they need to come up with a group contract. So if you go here again, this is this entire module on let's write a book. Here's the group work issues, the group assignment, and the group contract. So here I basically try to, so first of all, this is the task, this is the whole point what they're trying to do, right? So each student is assigned to a class, and this is basically how they're going to be getting their points. So the group has to get together and create a group contract. There are evaluation forms that they're going to be basically filling out at the end of the semester. There's the individual effort, the 70%, and then there's the team score to basically, for me, to see how they're working as a group. And in fact, the group work rubric, it's based on the quality of content they're creating, for example, the teamwork, whether or not they're just working on their own, they're actually communicating with each other. So that's basically the 20 points or 20% they're getting on this grade by working as a group. And also they have to evaluate each other, how well they were working as a group, right? So what is this group contract? So the group contract, I'm going to go at the very end. Basically, I give them a lot of sort of information in terms of how they need to get together and decide how they're going to do this work, right? So the group members, they get together and they write some sort of a document that becomes sort of like a binding contract between the members to try to see how they're going to do this. And I give them some examples. So it's sort of funny. I'm going to show you some examples how they went around. So there are some examples of how they can put it together, and some people really just stuck to it and modified it and answered those questions. But there was a team that basically they just wrote their own document pretty much. So for each group, I have created a Google Drive. I put them there, and that's where they're going to be. Originally, that was my idea. That's where they're going to be working on their chapter, and that's where the group contract has to be. So let me just give you an example. So here's a group that's going to be working on public policy and education. This is the contract that they prepared. And so it's just a text. So basically they got together, they went over the deadlines, what it needs to be done, and then they basically said, this is what I'm going to be responsible. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and then they signed, and that's basically their contract. That's one of the things this group has decided to do. Another group, for example, environment. So again, they're already working on this. This is the contract again. So guidelines to writing a team contract. So they read this, they had it there, and then the way they're going to be putting this together is that each team member is going to have a different color to see who is writing what, and then they also specify when are they going to be meeting, how are they going to be meeting, what's the channel, what are the expectations, and so on. So everybody's basically writing this, and they have to agree, and again they also sign it, and that's where we at. So that's one of the differences with the way I'm sort of putting this textbook together, is that it is a group assignment. So and I'm trying to make sure that individual effort is rewarded as well as team effort. Basically, that's the idea. So this is something new, and to be honest, has been copied by other people, and I'm using these collaborative learning techniques. It's a book that I was like getting some ideas from, but also from other professors that are much more well versed in trying to sort of put the groups together to work. That's sort of the background information. Now I'm going to show you, how are we doing this? And so full disclosure, I have never done this before, but I don't see how it's that much different from students writing the web pages. So I have done the web pages numerous times, and it's pretty effective, and people really put a lot of effort into it. And it's a very successful method of making students create new material. So the only difference is that instead of everybody answering the same question in the assignment and sort of putting it together, people are answering different questions and sort of putting the material together. So we're going to write a book. So let's see how that works. So this is the material that they have. So again, you see, like I read over this hopefully motivating quotes, and then I start sort of explaining to them, why are we doing this? Like, so why are we doing this, right? So part of it is that, we don't want to have these disposable assignments. And this is a person, Jessica Kruger, who has been helping me also tremendously. And she has done a project from the beginning till the end. She's working on this. And this is a video where she's explaining how she has done this project in her own class. And I'm sharing this with my students also, sort of as a motivator, and also to say that it has been done, it's possible. I'm not asking you something completely crazy for you to do here. It's going to be tough, it's different, but it's not impossible. So that's like another video here. And then I also obviously have to explain to them what are these open educational resources. So I, like they're watching this information here, OER defined. So there are all these like videos that we have. What are the 5 R's of OER and so on. So this is the idea. And also a little bit about open pedagogy. Again, this idea that open pedagogy takes open educational resources as a jumping off point to rethink the relationship between teachers, students, and knowledge, right? So that's sort of the idea, and I'm sort of building on that. So that's sort of like an intro to what we are doing here, why we are doing it. And also, like, I should mention that right now, all of this material, me talking about it, seems to be like maybe a distraction from the actual content of the course that we're teaching. But luckily for me, like, this is a class on public economics and public policy. Those are the concepts that we're going to be discussing later on. These are the things called, positive externalities and free riders and all the things that we are sort of, experiencing hands-on while doing this and creating this basically already informs about the public policy, right? And so on. So it's sort of really immersive experience to begin with. So all right, so this is basically the introduction they have. And if I go to the next page, I tell them, so this let's get going, right? So I mean, hopefully I have motivated you enough. I gave you an idea why we're doing this. I gave you some background information about open education resources. Here's what we're going to be doing. And one of the things that it's sort of interesting in this whole process is that I'm writing the chapters 1, 2, and 3, and they are sort of seeing how this is done in real time. So I'm writing it, and they see sort of like the empty page that doesn't exist, and they start seeing like how I'm sort of putting stuff together, how I'm writing, what are the expectations, how I'm editing, and so on. So basically, it's really showing by example what I expect them to do. So. And I'm going to show you what I have done and how it looks, and then basically how they're going to take it from there. So these first three chapters is what I'm working on, and these chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, these are the chapters that the students in a group of 3 or 4 are basically putting together. So we have that. Now, how do we do it? So right now we have, so again, like, let me pause here a little bit. So I think that writing these textbooks with students, it's very, very beneficial for upper level courses or even graduate classes, right? Why? For my micro and macro class, so these are the intro classes, there's a lot of very high-end OER textbook and material available already. So there is not as much value added there. But there are no textbooks for my public finance course. In fact, the one that I have here, I can show it to you. It's one of my favorite books, Public Finance and Public Policy by Jonathan Gruber from MIT. This textbook is $400, right? And there's no real alternatives for any kind of upper level courses when it comes to OER textbooks, right? And that's usually a complaint, that professors have, that yes, I would like to adopt an OER textbook, but there's no material for the class that I'm teaching, or the class might be very, very specific, like my food and wine economics. There is no textbook published at all in this field, right? I mean, I'm inventing it and putting together all these different parts from microeconomics, from macroeconomics, from nutrition, from geography, from many different, from public health, from many different sources, and I'm sort of combining it together. So I think this writing an open textbook is especially beneficial for these upper level courses where the material doesn't exist. That's where you're gonna also contribute the most, I guess. So right now, there is this current textbook that my students also have, but it's written for Australian and New Zealand audience. The theory is all the same, right? The examples are different, so it sort of really lends itself very, very nicely that they are reading this textbook, they know how it's supposed to look like, and they use that as a template, and then they can just basically substitute the information for Australia, New Zealand for the information for United States. This textbook is available online, but it's not OER. This is copyrighted. They have access to it, but it's not an OER textbook. So that's basically the foundation that my students basically have. And then, so how are we basically writing this textbook together? So I give them an example from microeconomics and macroeconomics and economy, society, and public policy. These are all OER textbooks. So that means that because they are OER, students can literally just go to these textbooks and take parts and pieces, chapters or sections, and use and modify it for whatever purpose they need for writing their textbook as well, their chapter as well. So that's the very, very useful part. And then what I do here is obviously I encourage them to use Wikipedia. Wikipedia, as you know, it's also all released under the CC BY license. I'm not exactly sure which one, probably non-commercial part as well. So all the material in Wikipedia is also allowed for them to be used. And another thing that we're also doing, that's actually my other talk that I'm giving on Thursday. We are using a site. It's I'm actually just open this. So what is the conversation? The conversation is a absolutely amazing site that I highly recommend for everybody to use. It's basically it's like Reuters or AP site where professors work collaboratively with journalists, so it says academic rigor and journalistic flair, to discuss all the current issues. So it doesn't have to be just economics, that's the stuff that I'm interested in, but it's environment, ethics, religion, health, politics, science, and technology. And it's really professors at different institutions writing this, but for the general audience. And what's even more important is that all of this is released. If you go at the very bottom here, all of this is released. These are the universities that are participating, the professors that are there. I, again, like a little bit of a plug-in, I wrote already 2 articles. I'm writing on a 3rd one, where is it? All of this is released. Maybe I'll just click on one on the side. It typically says that all of this is released under the Creative Commons as well. So, and really what happens with these articles, at least that's what happened to my articles as well, is that I published it here at this platform. So again, the conversation, and because it's released under the Creative Commons, it gets picked up by all these other media outlets, all these other local newspapers. And in fact, I got contacted by somebody from my institution within like 2 hours after it was released saying, "Oh my God, I saw your article being published in my newspaper. How did you know about it?" I was like, I didn't. I published it here, and then the other outlets basically pick it up because it is, again, released under the Creative Commons. So again, this is, you can see the power of releasing things under the Creative Commons license, how easy it is to sort of spread and share the knowledge, right? And so this is another good site that we're using, and students, I mean, for example, here, this is about the minimum wage. Students can then literally pick up this article and put it as a case study in the book that we are basically writing as well. So these are sort of the main sources that I'm using for them to get the information. One thing, again, I should mention here is that I know how this textbook should look like. I know what information should be there. I'm not writing anything too controversial in a sense, right? I mean, we know which chapters we need to write. We know which topics and terms need to be addressed within each chapter. And none of this really has to be written from scratch, right? The way we're writing this textbook, and that's what I'm also telling to my students, is that you're not supposed to write everything from, like, you don't stare at the blank page and start writing from scratch. This is not the assignment, right? The assignment is that go out there, try to find the material that is released under the Creative Commons, as again, like the Wikipedia, the conversation, these other textbooks, or if it is not, use it, but then paraphrase it, summarize it, do something with it, because then that's the stuff that you cannot obviously copy paste. So they cannot use the current textbook that we're using. You are not allowed to just go to this textbook, take a chunk of it, take a paragraph, and put it in your chapter. It's not allowed because it's not released under the Creative Commons, right? But you can use that idea, concept, and rewrite it, right? So again, here, when I say writing, this is not your typical academic writing, right? So I'm really sort of moving away from that idea. So I'm sort of abandoning this traditional format of academic writing, right? I mean, I'm sort of encouraging them to go out there, find this information that already exists, and then use it and put it together. And then my role in all of this is to guide them through it, right? I know which questions they should be answering, right? Just like you typically write, short answer questions, that's what I'm doing here, right? Within each chapter, I'm giving them instructions for these questions. These are the topics that they have to address. Now answer it, right? And the way you're going to answer in this is like, yeah, some of it, of course, you have to write it to sort of make it coherent, but a lot of this information really is available online, and you are allowed and encouraged to literally copy paste stuff, right, if it is released under the CC BY license, and give attribution, right? So this is the first time where so I'm the devil professor that is literally saying, literally copy paste and dump it into your chapter, right? I mean, it's like exactly the opposite what we want to achieve in most of other courses, where obviously that's plagiarism, right? But here it's a very, very different type of writing and different sort of reconstruction of knowledge using these open education resources again.
Dr. Dolar, could I interrupt? I have a couple questions related to what you're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is with the various resources you're sharing there. There was the one textbook that is copyrighted. You have Wikipedia, and then you have some OER resources there. Question about how reliable do you find Wikipedia to be? I think we hear that question a lot. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm also, I just took a course on how to edit Wikipedia, and it was focusing on COVID. So Wikipedia just had a class, I think altogether was a cohort of about 90 professors across the world. And we were basically asked to modify, change, and upgrade some of this material on Wikipedia. So I got to see a little bit, like what's happening in the kitchen, how this stuff is created. It's not perfect. So one of the things, of course, when it comes to Wikipedia, and we can have an entire episode, an entire lecture just on the Wikipedia part. Anybody can edit it, and there's this thing called vandalism, right? So people go there and intentionally provide inaccurate information. But one of the things you can see is like how quickly this is corrected, and they know, Wikipedians know that. I mean, professors typically are very, very concerned in terms of the quality of the material published there. But there have been some studies, and here, I mean, I would need to do a lot more research. There have been some studies in terms of trying to see the accuracy of the information provided there. It's very, very highly accurate. That's my impression. Again, I'm not an expert on this, and I would be gladly, and that's one of my projects as well in the future, try to see where it ranks. But it is pretty high quality. And if it's not high quality, go ahead and fix it. That's basically the solution here, just like with OER material. So Wikipedia, it's a good starting point, I think.
And having the other resources there also to
exactly,
to compare what you're finding on Wikipedia to, right?
Exactly.
So it's always good to share with students that you have to kind of cross-reference.
Exactly. So that's the whole point, right? So that's where my role as an instructor also comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I see some complete nonsense, and they might pick it up from Wikipedia, and that's what I'm going to see it, right? Or sometimes, like in Wikipedia, like especially in the stuff that I'm working on right now, it's an article, let's say, on public goods or public choice, but it goes in some bizarre. I mean, it's all accurate. Nothing is wrong with what it's written, but it's a very particular take on the topic that I don't think it's all that important. And if they're copying, pasting that part, I'm going to be telling them, yeah, look, I mean, nothing is inaccurate. Nothing wrong has been written. It's just like that's not the focus, or it's like really way too high level. This is like graduate level stuff that it's irrelevant for us. So that's my role too, right? I'm a curator. I'm there to make sure that the quality and of the material is there. And yes, the whole point here is that we have these then. So let me just click on this. So this is microeconomics. I'm just going to click on this. So this is your typical Lumen Learning textbook that has been released. This textbook, I'm using that textbook for my micro and macro class, right? So this is a textbook that it's very, very comparable to a standard textbook that I've been using for 10 years prior to that. And that textbook costs $250. This one is free of charge. It's not perfect. It doesn't have as many resources as what the publisher are providing. But in terms of, and you see, look here, there are externalities and public goods. This is what we're working on. It's good. it's good. It's a good start, right? So that's so I'm very happy to have that, and that's sort of my job too, right? I mean, that's where I see my job as an instructor of this course, as a professor of this course, that I do have to read this and make sure that whatever you're picking up from the internet is correct, right? So that's my job too. So that's awesome question.
Absolutely. So the only other question is, you create these with your classes. Do you create new textbooks every year, or do your students add to previous years?
So as I said, this is the first time actually putting together the textbook like that with my students. I can then refer you to Jessica Kruger, who has done it before. So her approach is that she has created a textbook, and then now what students are doing is they're editing it, modifying it, adding it to it. So that's sort of the idea. I can see myself, so for example, I'm putting this stuff together right now. There are at least 4 more chapters that should be covered under your typical public finance, public economics textbook. So next time I'm doing this, my students are going to be doing those other chapters. And then I can see, we can come back and we're adding to it. We're modifying it. We're updating it. So that would be basically the tasks in the future. So that's how I'm envisioning it. But again, like Jessica Kruger is, she has created a textbook, and now the students, I mean, the weight, the amount of grades they get for editing is obviously not as much as what she was doing the first time around, but that's sort of the idea.
Thank you very much.
Other
I think we're good on the question.
Okay. All right. So where was I? So again, so these are all good questions. Again, like for Wikipedia, we should probably have a session on it, because I also want to see some sort of like more, and there has been research done. I remember they were mentioning that in terms of the accuracy and how good it is. And it's pretty impressive, apparently, in terms of, I'm not the spokesperson for it, far from it, but it's a good start. So that's basically the idea. And again, as I said, Wikipedia, again, one of the things they try to do is be very neutral in terms of what's presented. And it's very boring. That's another thing too. Like, I mean, I'm sure you have seen some of these articles. It's like really bare bones ideas, while when you're writing a textbook, you're trying to make it a little bit more engaging, and you're trying to really bring in those examples and case studies, as opposed to just like a boring definition of what's an externality. You want to give examples and current examples and so on. So that's the fun part that we're trying to create as well. All right, let me go to the next thing that I want to show you. So then this is then we went from like this big picture of like why we're doing that, what are open educational resources, what open pedagogy is in terms of here's what you need to do for your group and putting it together. And now let me try to show you how you're going to do this, right? So the step 1 is like do the other 3 steps first, the other material, right? I mean, you have to sort of know why we are doing this. You have to have some information about the Creative Commons license, and then here are some useful resources. Then again, this is the style that I'm giving them. So like I'm sort of putting it together one more time, explaining how this is done. Then here's going to be the organization of each chapter. So again, it's very, very simple, right? Each chapter should have a brief introduction, main body, conclusion. This is not a sophisticated, complicated thing to do. And then here are some of the subsections you can have, some examples, and so on. Then there's step 4, an important step, obviously. As you're doing this and as you're putting this information together, you need to make sure that everything that you're literally copy pasting and using, it's released under the Creative Commons license. And again, that's my job too. Like I have to keep on going back, checking and rechecking that. And then you have to provide attribution. And again, here's an attribution builder that I have created, a little video instruction that it's out there. And it's sort of as it happens. So I have created this website over here. I have created this website, and on this website, this part here, these are the great parts of the chapter. I have literally copied this from somewhere else, right? So in this video here, I said, okay, look, I just created this page, this chapter, I'm writing it, and now I have to create an attribution. And as I did that, at the very bottom, when I was recording it, there was no attribution, but now there is attribution. And as I did this, I recorded myself, how do you do it, right? So I really showed them in sort of like, real time almost, right, how this is done, right? So I'm putting this stuff together for my students. This is something that I picked up from a different book, and I'm going to show you how do you give attribution. And in fact, the book that I'm using is Authoring Open Textbooks, right? So I mean, I'm not inventing anything new here either. And then also here is then the group process. They have to put this contract together, and these are some common roles that they can sort of assign to each other as they're working on this process as well. All right, so these are their instructions. And if I go next, let me just go back to the modules. Where are we? So again, we went over these instructions, right? So this is the to-do list where the important deadlines are put together. This is the instruction how to do it. I already told you about the group contract. This is a very, very interesting has to do with the group assignment as well. The hitchhikers and couch potatoes on the teams. It sort of explains how to deal with them, what Google learned from working with teams, and so on. So again, and then the open educational resources and what they can do. Now, let me then show you an example of what I was doing basically. So this is chapter 1. This is the one that I'm writing, right? So these two chapters here are, it's a link to the book that it's not released under the Creative Commons, but it's online, right? So that's always this difference, right? Free and available online doesn't make it open educational resources because this is still copyrighted. I mean, they can go there, they can read it, but they cannot just like take stuff from it. And this is the chapter that I'm writing. So if you actually click on this, you're going to see in the beginning there was nothing, and now this is the stuff that I'm sort of putting together. And in fact, these are not even learning outcomes. These are actually the topics that I need to explain, and they can see it's a mess. And each day I add something, I change something. This is the part that is basically taken from Wikipedia, and you can see like whenever there's Wikipedia, there's tons and tons of other links, but then like I have to sort of put it together, I have to make some sense out of it. So this is the stuff, and then you can see this is the stuff that I'm writing because there are no links, right? So these are the questions that we were discussing. These are the things they have to know. Again, you can see this is from Wikipedia, a lot of links. And then again, I'm explaining something, I'm writing something and explaining things like that. So that's basically the chapter that they're seeing happen in real time and how I'm putting it together. And as for them, so these are, and here there's like nothing, I haven't worked on it. This is already something that I'm putting together as well. And this is their stuff. So this is the chapter from the other textbook, the Australian version, that they can read. And this is their stuff. So what have I created for them? This is the team that it's there. And this is sort of the outline. And these are the topics. And these are the things that should be addressed. So right now, this is just like when I'm thinking about, okay, when we're talking about externalities, these are the things that need to do. These are the things they need to do. And in fact, I'm reusing the assignment that I showed you before, the coronavirus assignment, and I'm reusing parts of this because they can say, consider some of the issues and give that as an example here as well. So that's basically how this chapter is structured. These are the things I need to sort of address. And then I can go to the next one. For example, here, public goods again. This is the chapter that they're reading. This is the outline for the book that they have to create. So this is, again, this is the team, and these are the things that need to define, and this is connection to COVID as well. And so I'm sort of reusing some of the part that I created there because it's the same concept, right? That assignment that they were doing last year, and each person answered those questions. Well, do it together, I mean, and write it, and it becomes a chapter all of a sudden of a textbook. And then finally, I see like I have only a few more minutes. What I have also created is I have now put this stuff together in a book that's going to look like a book. So this is the same thing. So this is in all of this stuff that I was showing you. It's in Canvas. It could be a Blackboard. It doesn't matter. It's an LMS, right? But then we're putting it together, and now it becomes a book. So everything that I have just shown you, we're going to write a textbook, becomes a book, right? So this is an example. Look, so now it's a book. This is how it looks like. And then it has pages and citations, and you can go to the next page, and it has a table of content, and everything is basically here. So it becomes, so now they start seeing that this is serious. There really will be a book, right? So everything that I showed you is now copy pasted here, and these are their sections that I'm basically putting together. Here again, I'm using Lumen Learning, and this textbook is exactly identical to the textbook that I'm using as a reference. You can also use, alternatively, you can use these are Pressbooks, and Lumen Learning is similar to Pressbooks. So it's, again, this is just the red platform. This is the where is it now? It's this is the blue platform. That's the only difference, how I can tell the difference. Lumen Learning, and this is the Pressbooks. And with Pressbooks, again, you can have a textbooks, and this is the textbook, right? I mean, I can go home, and we have created the same textbook here. Read the book, and then here's the content. You can sort of look at. It's a bit slow. These are the chapters. These are the things that I'm working on. You see all the things that I did, but now it actually starts to look like an actual book, right? So, and here it says we're going to write a book, all the information that I basically gave you, and here it is. So then, you know, they really do see it, that it's going to be put together as a book and not just some sort of like random thoughts all over the place.
Thank you, Dr. Dolar. We are about out of time. Are there any last minute questions? And I want to share my screen really quickly.
So John, there is one question, maybe Dr. Dolar could answer it very quickly, but just your approach to, you know, if students don't want their work shared, you know, and they don't want to be sort of part of the public facing piece of that. Do you have anything you do for those, since it is an assignment in your class?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first thing is that I was doing that originally, as I said, with each individual student creating their websites. And I always tell them, like for the website especially, because it's yours, it's your name, it's related to you. For the website, if you don't feel comfortable, you can always just write it up as a regular thing and submit it to me as an assignment. So it doesn't have to be online. There was like, I really wanted to make sure that nobody's forced to put anything out there online and put it under the Creative Commons. How many times have students asked this in the past 4 years? And so that's 8 semesters or more, 0 times. So this option always exists. In fact, what typically ends up happening is they become very enthusiastic and they really want to share their work, and it becomes important to them. Creating a textbook is a bit different because there's no name associated with them, right? So it's already a work group, chapters together. So one thing that I can ask them is like, do you want to have your name attached to the book or not? That's the only thing, like as a co-author of it, that's the only thing. And I'm guessing most people want to be attached to the textbook, to say like, oh, look, I published a book. But if they don't, absolutely no need for that. So here there's like less and less of the direct connection to what somebody has written and created.
Great, I appreciate you answering that question for us. So I know that we are at time, and I'm going to stop the recording here.